What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today, E46 hydro install. We've been getting on these E46s recently.
We got one out there, silver one there, and then Andy has one as well. This is my 330 drift car.
I recently picked this thing up for a pretty good deal, and today we're gonna install hydro e-brake.
And for all you subscribers, no, this is not Andy's car. We actually have identical cars. We're going out drifting here in a few days.
So this is the hydro we're gonna be installing today. This is an ASD hydro, our favorite. We've run some Chase bays, ASDs, some cheap eBays. ASD is the way to go. So this is the traditional pullback. Sometimes they have a style where you can pull a reverse mount, so you can pull this way on it. The BMW, this is kind of the best route that we've found out for like a stock car. Nice Willwood master, that is always key. All these parts, we'll link them down in the description if you want to check them out. We're running for the first time the Drift HQ lines for BMW, E36, E46, they're kind of all the same stuff. A lot of these parts are from Drift HQ. Go support them. We're not affiliated with them, but just kind of like what they're doing. And then we have a mounting plate for the hydro that bolts over the shifter, and then you go ahead and bolt the hydro to this little blank spot right there. And then for mounting the dual caliper, always do dual caliper. The inline stuff is no good in my opinion. I hate inline hydros. If you can spend a little extra money, definitely do it. Get the dual caliper set up. So these are the dual caliper brackets. This is what bolts onto the back of the rear knuckle spindle hub assembly type thing, and holds the secondary caliper on the rotor. So we have two of these. This is a 330 E46, so these are specific to a 330. So 330s have larger brakes. This comes from another country. I don't know what brand it is. It's on eBay. We'll link it down in the description. Andy has his on his 330 and it worked pretty well. So we're gonna go ahead and give that a shot. Got some new pads, and then we also got our AutoZone calipers. You can get them on eBay, you can get them on AutoZone. Pretty simple. Like I said, the 330 has larger brakes all around, so we had to make sure we got that. And I think we have all we need, so let's get started. So Andy and I are gonna kind of divide and conquer on this install.
He's gonna be working on the interior trim, since this is what he did with his car and it worked out really well. Little look, preview. She's bone stock, nothing's done to the interior, actually really clean. So fingers crossed, we're gonna try to retain as much of it as we can. I'm gonna go ahead and get it up in the air, take the wheels off, and get to work.
All right, so I am back in the interior of an E46, tearing it apart. Feels like just yesterday I was doing mine. Where I'm at kind of right now is I just pulled this center trim piece out with the shift boot and the shift knob. And under here, there's a few little screws that you can undo. Start wanting to get ready this shift boot. And then right down here, there's a few layers with these pieces right here. You pull one out and then there's some tabs. And then the other one, there's some actual like little screws right there. I believe in here by the cup holders, there'll be a few more screws. And then we'll take apart this and it should be ready to roll and we'll start cutting stuff up.
Wheels off, first step. OEM caliper's got to come off, and then we got to get this big old rotor off. I don't want to forget this tiny little screw. It's a little hex Allen key, and that's what actually keeps the rotor from falling off once the caliper's off. Once these are off, we'll have more access to this dust shield, which we're going to probably need to remove. That way we can put our little bracket on. Little tip, if you ever have something that's really stuck on there and you can't get it by just your hand, a little dead blow, tap on the end, kind of acts as a little bit of a impact. The rotors are usually pretty stuck on, pretty rusted along the hub. Dead blow yet again. Trying to wash my fingers. All right, handbrake down, please. Handbrake doesn't help either. Man, those are big for rears. So I'm at the point, I'm gonna take off the stock handbrake. I hate doing it. I love retaining the stock handle in the car, which I guess we can still keep the handle. However, it will no longer be functional because we're gonna be taking off the shoe and the pad and all that whole assembly. It's just a bunch of springs. You turn this spring, you pull this off, whatever, it kind of falls apart because we do got to remove this dust shield. Dust shield definitely unbolts. I think there's some in the back, which though I think those are the bolt holes we use for that bracket. I'm not 100% sure, but I think if you go with the Willwood setup, it costs a lot more money, but I think you can retain the stock handbrake with that setup. Do your own research on that. I'm not sure. I think it's like $600 just for the calipers alone, which this setup's like $600 for everything. But for now, stock handbrake. We'll see you later. So unscrew that, pops out. Do a little one of these. Twist it 90 degrees. That falls out, and then it kind of just fries right off. We got the brake drum shoe looking thing off. Dust cover is almost off. So there's one 10 millimeter here, one 10 milli down here. And then I was wondering why it wasn't coming off. There are two bolts right here, one at the top and one at the bottom. They're both 16 millimeters, and they hold on where the cable comes out of the hub assembly. So I just went in and pushed that cable back in that little hole. Gonna call it good enough. And I gotta take these bolty boys out, and that dust shield will be no more.
I have pretty much everything ready and out for the most part. What I did was I took this center console part. There were 2 little screws right over here, and then everything just kind of slides out with your hands. It's not too hard. Just be careful not to break any of the plastics or little trim pieces. But I disconnected a few of these little wiring things up there for the temperature controls. This is all actually connected to the dash, so you kind of have to plan on cutting some of it and just kind of finding a way to make it look nice. So now I'm starting to take out some of this carpet right here so Jonathan can weld that plate to this transmission tunnel right here.
Yet another downside of having a dual caliper hydro, we do have to remove this speed sensor just chilling in the hub. What that does, that takes off your speedometer and your odometer. So you no longer know how fast you're going, and you no longer know the miles of your car. Kind of 2 important things. However, it's important for drifting. We got to get rid of this thing. It's a drift car. It's only downhill from here. I just got the dual caliper bracket on. There's 3 little bolts for it. There's a small one up top, and then there are 2 larger ones, Allen hex key bolts on the bottom. I went ahead and used red thread locker just to kind of make sure it doesn't go anywhere. There are rights and lefts, so these bolt holes, these holes should line up with these holes, meaning on the same plane. I really like this bracket. It adapts kind of where the dust shield bolts to the hub, and then they just kind of made a bracket around that, which is really cool. And it's pretty inexpensive. Like I said, I'll link everything down in the description. My next step, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of start putting the rotor back on and then the calipers. I do have to put the new pads in the calipers. I'm not gonna show you to do that. And once those are on, we can go ahead and start running the lines, and we'll check back in with Andy with the bracket. One little issue we even ran into it on Andy's car, and we thought we figured it out on this one. However, we do have to end up grinding down a little bit of material on the back of this knuckle. That way the bolt can sit through the second caliper bracket a little more smoothly, because what was happening was the head of the bolt was actually hitting the trailing arm a little bit, so that way we couldn't actually turn it or get a wrench on it. So we're just gonna grind down a little bit more here, that way we can clear it and be able to attach that caliper and be able to, more importantly, like service it and take this bolt in and out with ease. Hydro install day 2. Today we're gonna mount the handle. So we have
Andy's car and then my car. So they are identical. 330s, exactly the same. Which is super sweet.
He already has his mounted. So what I'm gonna kind of do is see where he cut his trim pieces, and then he ended up zip tying his window switches to the actual hydro mount. Just trying to note where he cut his. Here's kind of a reference of what his looks like. I'm gonna try to do a little bit better, but he did a pretty good job with it. Pretty clean overall. So this is my car. We're gonna go in here, mark kind of where we need to trim this piece down, and then grind down some of this metal, cut the carpet a little bit just along this edge, and then we'll work on that trim piece after we get this main one kind of cut up and the plate sized up. So this metal plate sits pretty simply over top of the shifter. I believe it goes like this. And then what I'm actually going to end up doing is bolting, instead of using bolts, I'm just going to weld it to the chassis underneath. So after I cut this out, it'll give it just enough space to sit down. So that piece is trimmed. I'm gonna go and take my carpet knife and cut the carpet back a little bit. Maybe slice it right here, kind of where you can't see it. Then take my little sander boy and grind down some of this paint, so that way when we set this over, or it goes like that. So yeah, it's starting to fit a little bit better. We can actually weld it. Already got the hydro all mocked up, got this plate chilling down here. What I went ahead and do is took out the reservoir, the master. That way I can mark holes of where I need to drill. And what I'm actually gonna do is weld on nuts on the back side of this plate. That way it's easy to service. I can just bolt it down and not have to worry about holding nuts on the back side. So holes have been marked there and there. I'm gonna go ahead and drill it, weld some nuts on the back, and then we're gonna go ahead and weld the plate to the chassis after we grind down the metal. Already got everything grinded down, paint's gone, ready to go ahead and weld in our little plate. Nuts are welded on the back of this thing now. The nuts are welded on the back, so that way I can just go ahead and zip the bolts down after she's in there. So lining her up one more time, send it on. All right, we're taking a quick break for the install. Skip ahead like 20-30 seconds if you want me to resume. We're at the point now we're gonna go ahead and drill some holes. However, we got some E46s outside and we're cruising.
Let's go! 330 coupe. Most of these are coupes. 330 sedan. And then we got 325 sedan. Sorry, Tyler, you're the slowest one out of the group.
One of my tips fell off. This crappy, the crappy B&S welds. I'm pissed.
It's so obnoxious. Oh my gosh!
And we have another flaming E46 baby.
Whenever, one short.
Bro.
So this is where I ended up drilling the holes in the trunk. I went underneath and kind of made sure there was no fuel lines or gas tank underneath. So this is where the spare tire sits, and then just right on top. The brake lines, there's a T in the middle. We went ahead and sent it there, and then we have another piece that we'll attach underneath. So the hydro's almost done. We ran into a little bit of an issue with the Drift HQ lines. Some of the fittings weren't quite right. I might email them and see if I did something wrong or if the line kit just needs a little bit more. Kind of a couple revisions. A couple of the fittings, there weren't enough 90 degrees, so it wouldn't fit the calipers that well. Maybe recommend the Chase Bays lines are a little more expensive. However, we've done it on several cars and the Chase Bays going pretty flawlessly. They're like, I think it's like 160 bucks for a pair. Where we're at right now,
She's all good. She's all lined up. We had to go ahead and add another line that I had laying around just to get the fit right.
also, I went ahead, welded in that plate. Here's what it came out like. Looks pretty good. I just laid on some bed liner on there, kind of spray painted it so it wouldn't rust. And then now I'm gonna go ahead and bolt in the hydro, cut up some trim, and then we're gonna start the bleeding process, which is pretty easy. The bleeding process of a hydro is just like a clutch. I'm gonna go ahead and fill it up with some brake fluid, pump it up a few times, crack a bleeder a little bit, pull the hydro, hold it, and then have my buddy close the bleeder, and then release the hydro. Do that a few times on one side, and then the other side will be set. Alright everybody, finishing up the install here late. It actually came out really, really nicely. Had to trim a little bit of stuff here and there, but overall, pretty pleased with how it came out. Works pretty good. I did have a little issue where it actually wasn't working at first, like there was no fluid moving. I loosened these two nuts right here, and it allowed, I guess, the plunger to kind of move all the way back. So now she's good and tight. We bled it, mounted everything. Ran the hydro line underneath the seat and then in the back and down where I showed y'all earlier. So there's the final result. Pretty good if I do say so myself, really pleased with it. And we're going drifting tomorrow. Alrighty guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. Make sure, give the video a thumbs up. Helps a lot more people find the video and the channel. If it helped you out, definitely give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Hydro came out great. Can't wait to drift on it tomorrow. We're gonna go take the 330s to a drift event. So excited. It's a brand new track. That video will be coming out here shortly. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Hey, coming down like precipitation. I ain't never